Have a glorious mighty evening. So, Russia has delivered a powerful strike on Kyiv, but again, not on the decision-making centers as they said, but on various targets that are quite far from each other. Mostly these were residential buildings, that's how it turned out. At that time, Zelensky, who actually brought this boomerang upon himself, was of course on some unnecessary trip, this time in Ireland. And from there he was saying, be careful Ukrainians, be careful, a very dangerous night is coming, so be cautious there. Of course now he's saying that they're going to send a response like a boomerang and no one will get off easy. How long this will go on is unclear, but another business trip is definitely just around the corner. Before we look at what's happening in Kyiv, and I would say there are a lot of complications there, let's remember the situation when a little 5-year-old girl was left without her father. Lyudova from Lyudolova was also mentioned by the military enlistment office guys in another video. They took her father into the army just at the military enlistment office, and until the scandal broke out, he was somewhere down in those basements. Then he was released largely thanks to the head of the kindergarten where this girl studied, and in the end everything is fine with the family, but now things are bad for the head of the kindergarten. This is just some kind of nightmare with this country. Well, it's turning into something else. Look, I posted information in my Telegram that the principal of the kindergarten, who wanted to save a 5-year-old girl from her father who was illegally mobilized, was punished. Information is spreading on social media that she was summoned to the executive city council, and there she had to delete all the videos, plus she was fined. Moreover, this is known from people, so to speak, close to her. It turns out that the head was summoned, and there she was forced to write, first of all, an explanation, secondly, she was given a reprimand, and 40% of her salary was deducted for 6 months. On top of that, they even suggested that she resign, which she refused. In short, what's going on? Why? The main thing is for Zelensky to look good, and what happens to ordinary people doesn't matter. The surface should remain calm and smooth. Deep down, all sorts of shady things can happen, but the main thing is for everything to look quiet and transparent on the surface. And what's down below doesn't bother any of those who float above in their catamarans and yachts. Now about Kyiv. Yes, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, in case that strange thing happened. And on my Telegram channel you can find more detailed information, so you can also see other incidents there. Just point your smartphone or tablet camera at this link and you'll go straight to this abode of wisdom. And by the way, if you're watching me from a mobile device, there's a direct link to the channel right here in the video description. Now regarding Kyiv. At night, such a powerful strike was delivered that even the ceiling in the subway collapsed. It didn't collapse completely, not in the sense that it was pierced through, but things were falling from there. Initially, it was reported that 13 people had died and dozens were injured, but now it turns out that there are already 18 or even more dead. There are 85 injured. 570 different aerial attack instruments were sent. These include drones and missiles. Here are 8 cruise missiles, 32 other cruise missiles, 4 Iskanders, and 476 drones. It is reported that many of them were shot down, some reached their targets, but overall there was really a lot of destruction. A total of 74 missiles and, as I said, 496 drones were recorded. Here, for example, are the consequences. Well, yes, there are already victims there, and they're trying to save and resuscitate them. And there were a huge number of problems, and mostly, again, the damage was mainly to residential buildings. Moreover, this time even residential buildings where the elite live were affected. Moreover, the elite don't buy apartments there with their own money, but rather with their own money through frontmen. Maybe this says something, maybe it doesn't, but for now these are just the homes of ordinary people, not the elite. Zelensky, of course, immediately showed up, returned right away from Ireland after the shelling ended. Now everything is calm and he can go on talking about strength and resilience. And he stated that more than 20 locations in Kyiv were damaged. Mostly residential buildings, ambulance stations, a scientific institute and a hotel, and it's quite an expensive one. And various kinds of businesses. Besides that, naturally, not only Kyiv was affected, but also cities in the Kharkiv region were hit. In Sumy, in Dnipropetrovsk, in Zaporizhzhia, in Cherkasy. And right away, naturally, Zelensky started saying, give us money. Well, not money, but air defense, and we need a license, and everything else. Right away, Ukraine made a request saying, give us Patriot, because without Patriot even the water won't be blessed. That's what they're writing, Ukraine. Ukraine is in urgent need of additional Patriot systems and missiles for them. They are the ones capable of effectively intercepting Russian ballistic missiles. At the same time, the shortage problem is global, and during a massive attack it is said that 28 were launched at once. The missiles could not be intercepted. All of this, in my opinion, came up after people started asking what was going on, why there were no interceptors. A lot of people noticed that the air defense forces were inactive, drones or missiles were flying, and they were hitting some specific target apparently chosen by the operators, without any anti-missiles, without shooting down these objects. So what's happening? Defenseless citizens in a defenseless city. And at the same time, they were saying that now we've been provided with weapons, well, apparently now there will be pressure on foreign partners, particularly on the US, so that they provide a license to produce Patriots and Tomahawks in Ukraine. What will happen after that? Well, naturally, they'll start selling them. Who will use them to protect their territory? But then they stated that we need to understand that the whole country needs to be protected, but there are very, very few missiles. And a certain Ignat stated that the problem is not only in Ukraine, but there is also a shortage of these munitions around the world. The fact is that significant stockpiles were used by the Persian Gulf countries. Production remains limited since the main producer is the United States. In short, this Ignat guy supposedly tells the United States what to do, where and why. And as Zelensky usually says, give us money. What does Zelensky do here? Zelensky makes all sorts of statements. For example, he says that Russia is losing the war. So Zelensky started all these retaliations, then left for Ireland, and now, according to him, Russia is already losing the war. Of course, he arrived at the site of the Russian strike. He needed to take a photo, a video, and he started making all sorts of statements. He stated that some of the losses could have been prevented if the Allies had fulfilled their promises on weapons in time, so naturally it's the Allies who are to blame. If our partners had given what they promised on time, today we could have saved homes and people. This is a big problem. He kept silent about the fact that it was possible not to attack certain armies, the RF Armed Forces object, in order to avoid such retaliation. No, and now, after everything has already happened, he says we'll hit Russia with even greater force. I mean, apparently, as I said at the beginning, in order to go on another business trip. That's what the powerful president is saying.
Would you propose a NATO meeting to Putin using the same channels as Emrys? Wouldn't you suggest that? Is
that the kind of Putin you mean? Someone gives Putin that kind of expression, it feels like he doesn't understand what's being talked about and just comes up with something on the spot to answer. Next to him on the left is a powerful Minister of Internal Affairs putting on a stern, serious face. I don't know why there isn't a character named Sibiga.
We are open, we are ready to meet, but he is afraid to meet in person.
Mr. President, he's afraid. In short, Zelensky says he's afraid to meet physically, but virtually, apparently. For example, millions of Ukrainians are looking at you. Yes, 30 million Ukrainians are counting on Zelensky, of course, and he has already shown how well he protects. In general, all of this is great. Next. It's very hard for a person to concentrate. Apparently, he had a good time in Ireland.
Is he losing, or does he want to stay? He clearly understands that he can intimidate people and simply destroy the civilian population.
Well, that's how it is. This has been dragging on for many months. And Zelensky also for some reason mentioned Norway as an example, which said it would pay for 200 missiles for Ukraine, but not a single one has actually arrived. Here you could ask, maybe it's because Ukraine is doing something wrong there. For example, Slovakia has already stated that it won't give a cent, not even a euro cent, for any new forces, for weapons, or for military needs for Ukraine. That is, if we're talking about helping people, then yes, and in Slovakia, in fact, there are still people from Ukraine, refugees, and they are being provided with assistance. But if they demand, of course, Ukraine won't ask. It will demand money for military needs, then Slovakia won't give anything. And apparently Hungary is also moving. Not Hungary, but Norway is also moving to this point of view. Moreover, Ukraine doesn't even have specific requests for how much is actually needed. He says that Ukraine doesn't have such a number, Kyiv keeps pressuring its partners, and Russia is losing the war, but there is no victory and there won't be a victory, and Putin needs strength he doesn't have, with elections coming up in September. Well, in general, for the people who died, their families, or those who were wounded during this raid on Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine, I think they absolutely don't care who is where or what happens in the elections. But of course, Zelensky doesn't feel the same way. Plus, he also makes statements about Europe, puts pressure on Europe, and says the following: without Ukrainian experience, Europe will not be able to ensure its own security. Putin will have to face conditions that will make it impossible for him to continue the war. According to him, Kyiv is creating these conditions with long-range strikes on Russian military and energy facilities. He also stated that the world's strongest leaders, including the President of the United States, have already told Moscow about the need to end the war. However, Putin wants to keep fighting. At the moment, it seems that the best conditions for continuing this war are not with Putin, but with some other representatives of the political elite. So that's still a big question. In other words, Zelensky, of course, is talking about the war, about defense, offense. Ukraine and the European Union are already together. Drone deals, scandals, and a complete impeachment, according to Sibiga. In general, they are already close. Without Ukraine, says Zelensky, without Ukrainian experience and expertise in the field of security, proven in modern warfare, it is simply impossible to guarantee security today, especially when it comes to air defense and maritime security. That's how it is. That's about it, something like that, as Zelensky himself said. So what else? It turns out that all sorts of Ukrainian flying contraptions, these so-called wonder weapons, can reach half of Russia's territory. Experts are saying this too. That's it. Here's a pink flamingo, which looks surprisingly similar to the V2 flying somewhere, and we're being told that Ukraine has significantly expanded the range and intensity of missile strikes on Russian territory. If earlier the threat mostly concerned the border regions, now sirens are sounding in the central part of Russia, in the Volga region and in the North Caucasus. Then, in the Omsk region in western Siberia this happened, 3,000 kilometers from the border in the Urals. To reach so deep, Kyiv is increasingly using its own domestically produced cruise missiles. Today I just saw a discussion by some Ukrainian expert who was doubting whether Ukrainian missiles are actually flying anywhere. That drones are flying, yes, most likely when they are let through by the air defense over their own territory. Missiles may be flying, but that doesn't mean they're actually exploding anywhere. That's why today someone even joked, well, not really a joke, more of a skeptical remark, that if out of 3 missiles even one arrives, that's already good. Or if one even launches, something like that. And the Flamingo missiles, says Zelensky, have already struck a defense plant in Cheboksary at a distance of more than 1,500 kilometers. The oil refinery in Ufa is under attack. It seems it has already been bombed twice. And a military facility in the Penza region and in Slavyansk na Kubani. Ukraine often tries to overload and overwhelm Russian air defense with drones so that cruise missiles can break through. Next, he tells us that suddenly Ukraine, which is asking for weapons from foreign partners, is now also planning to sell weapons with a foreign partner. Honestly, I don't really understand what's going on. In my logic, if you have a shortage of something, it should stay with you. For example, if you're starving, then the food you make at home, I don't know, you fried some potatoes, well, you probably shouldn't go and sell them somewhere. Especially if those potatoes are for your children, not you, figuratively speaking. The government, they tell us, has launched a special mechanism for the controlled export of Ukrainian weapons and defense technologies. For the first time, manufacturers have received a single and transparent rule for entering partner markets, while the priority supply to the army remains a mandatory condition. Here again, this drone deal with impeachment is mentioned, and these countries that are part of this very deal can buy Ukrainian weapons and technologies and work directly with the manufacturers. Here, some percentages are going somewhere, but you understand that all of this will be in ratification facilities like these. These 20%, then 30%, and 150% and everything else. So I think it's too early to discuss anything here. We need to see what will happen there. Well, and in the end, the conflict between Zelensky and that very Zaluzhny is already being confirmed. Zelensky, and several sources are already talking about this, really did ask Zaluzhny not to participate in the elections, but he refused. And so Zelensky thinks that his 30 million should buy Ukrainian weapons. And Zaluzhny thinks that a huge number of people will support him, and again, he believes that if the military comes to power, it will be great. Personally, I don't think so. In my view, the president, essentially a hired manager of a country, should be strictly, in my opinion, to be president. A person who understands the administrative intricacies of management well, but he must also understand economics. Plus, at least superficially know Ukrainian at least on a basic level, in foreign policy relations, in domestic affairs, and he should also know the rules of etiquette. And now a military man will come to us and everything will change. In which direction? Well, we already know in which direction this could change. Also, Yuga Lutsenko is here, I'll show him. He said there are many powerful and popular military people there. Yuga Lutsenko, the head of various Ukrainian organizations, Lutsenko, I'll show him now, claimed that there are still many powerful military figures there, very popular ones according to him. Yuga Lutsenko is the head of various paramilitary and military groups, and military units. Well, all of them are striving for power. Can you imagine what that will be like? A year ago, in one of my early streams, I said that after the war, Ukraine could see military people dominating, asking, did you buy this? Where were you? Did you fight? I did. Do you respect me? There might even be force or weapons used. Secondly, they will demand benefits for themselves. And right now we're not talking about whether it's fair or not. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people will come and demand benefits for themselves, and человек будет требовать для себя льгот. The loudest voices are likely from those who only fought on the sidelines with pies and cabbage. Also, those who save money for campaigns will start vying for power. Ukrainian as a strong force. Well, the powerful winged one in the person of Poroshenko has deflated a bit, both figuratively and literally. And everyone else is gradually starting to puff up, really moving forward, trying to get into power. Well, and they won't come alone. They'll bring relatives, spouses, and children, some arriving from abroad or managing things remotely. We'll face such a large influx, it won't feel minor. Let me show you a female military representative who talks about being a Navy SEAL. I don't know what kind of SEAL that is, but it's Ukrainian military equipment. It's interesting they wear feathers. I dreamed of joining the armed forces of Ukraine for 15 years. You've been buying Ukrainian military equipment since you were 15.
And start killing people? I wonder if a girl has this desire from her country.
Збройних сил України.
А ви з 15. Those who join the army, then what happens there? The question immediately arises, Doctor, about what was done with Ukrainian weapons.
When I saw the horror during the occupation, I promised myself that when I grow up, I would go defend.
Well, in short, you get it. A powerful Valkyrie just from the front line with battle makeup, with a combat uniform still not worn out, and of course with a bonnet. In her case, obviously it's a beret, but it's a military beret, and for her it's a way to show off, as they say, like Ukrainians do. And here Kurbanita immediately comes to the rescue, asking the right question.
But what can you do? Because something isn't going quite in the right direction.
She asks the right question, and we move on to a couple from these very powerful leaders who haven't appeared here yet. Ah, here we have, where is he? Yes, there's also Emelian hiding abroad on the left, the extremely dark journalist. Where he was sunbathing, on which fronts, is also unknown, but apparently he was attacked with a flamethrower, somewhere on the shores of Malibu, or maybe Tenerife, maybe somewhere else. Omelian is looking up, either trying to see his bangs or the heavens, and draws a conclusion. By the way, he's the Minister of Transport. The former minister, who is now hiding in England from criminal prosecution, is accused of evading military service and moreover of deception, indeed of breaking the law. Well, that's how it is. He ran abroad and continues, or rather keeps pushing his line there, saying that Ukrainians need to fight. In short, Ukliant went abroad and is making statements there. Very interesting.
In war, not only effective strikes on strategic targets are important, but also emotional blows.
An emotional blow, yeah. An emotional blow abroad was delivered by Omelian himself. First of all, probably to Elon Musk, who never got to see the Hyperloop I mean in Ukraine, which Omelian had promised to build. Poor Elon Musk.
The will to fight and the belief that your armed forces will definitely win together with the people is very important. Gazprom has in fact essentially ceased to exist.
Gazprom has already ceased to exist, according to Omelian. So let's put on our power glasses, because now the mockery of the viewer is beginning.
Ma'am, their capitalization is now on par with average European companies.
I see. Alright, Omelian knows about the capitalization of gas and oil companies. That's great. Because who else hasn't spoken yet? There's Yura Lutsenko, who shares his wisdom with us, the poor and miserable. The journalist looks at him suspiciously. The journalist started.
I know about this call from a phone call with General Zaluzhny without insider info. When asked if he would run, General Zaluzhny replied, "Yes, I will run because millions of people are counting on me and I cannot ignore their opinion."
So Zaluzhny, well, this is about the elections. We're coming back to the elections. And it turns out Zaluzhny says that millions of people are counting on him. I wonder, who are these millions? Are these the same people who support Zelensky, or are they some other millions? Or what kind of millions are there anyway?
Look, there could still be a lot more candidates because no one has considered or calculated the effect how many votes candidates from among the legendary commanders of different military units might get.
Already legendary commanders, well, I see. It's like elections, all the candidates, well, powerful leaders.
The ideal result of the likely presidential elections would be Zaluzhny and Budanov reaching the second round.
Yeah, well, I get it. From the SBU, or rather not from the SBU, but, and the military. That would be a really powerful tandem.
You will be. The elections will become fair. Secondly, it will be an interesting choice of candidates, none of whom are associated with Zelensky's terrible mistakes. Now, there can be two candidates who definitely understand how to prevent a new war.
Yeah, but the war isn't over yet. Yoga, you probably don't know, you haven't been at the front for a long time. And with your powerful arms and enormous biceps, you probably haven't been tearing enemy bodies apart for a long time. But if you had been there, or at least watched TV, anything at all, you would understand that the war is going on and there's no end in sight, despite the statements. But apparently he thinks differently, maybe because of something he saw on Channel 5.
The ones who definitely don't walk around the police station, and who definitely aren't looking for a story in the archives.
Yeah, I see. They're not looking, right? So, who is looking then? Yora, give us at least a hint. Who is looking for enemies of the people? That's interesting. But Ukraine is supposed to be a democratic state. It's even more democratic than all the other democracies.
The ideal result, which I predicted about 2 months ago, is that in another round, if we aren't subjected to massive fraud, we'll see two generals. And that will be,
Well, Yora, in short, we have a brilliant forecaster. I'm not saying I'm a forecaster or anything like that, but apparently someone pulled some tarot cards and predicted that Budanov should be there because of Luzhina. That's just wonderful. So, what are the conclusions? First, I think Zelensky will immediately, probably in the next couple of days, leave the country because, well, there will be shelling soon from Ukraine towards Russia. Then Russia will respond. Zelensky needs to sign new supply contracts somewhere, maybe for berries, wild garlic or something else. Wild garlic doesn't have berries, so maybe just for the wild garlic itself or another item. Or go there, for example, that head of one of the Latin American republics with the telling last name Nasri came to Kyiv. I've already joked about the stage of events developing around Nasri in Kyiv. Well, now Zelensky is going to Nasri and apparently he'll meet with him there. That could also be a possible development. We wait and hope for the best. Have a good rest of your evening whenever you're watching me, or a good day or morning. Wishing you all the best and peaceful skies. Goodbye, everyone.
I can say that in the vast, absolute majority of cases, how a unit treats anyone who joins the army depends solely on what that person does for the unit and the common cause. That is, if a person truly comes to make an effort and contribute to this common cause, they will always be treated very well, both by the commander and by the people they serve with. When I was in the assault units, we never showed any bias.